welcome back to Dune Hippie Machine for another episode here. I just finished welding up the cross member. Didn't get any more footage of me putting it in the truck, but I do have it in here, so I'll give you a peek at it. We've got the radius arm cross member center mount set up in there. I still got to get bolts through there, and those tabs are just tacked in. But that's what I was welding on. Beginning of this video, you see me there welding on that cross member. So I have gotten that in now, positioned the radius arms, positioned the beams. We can start cycling this thing now. I actually have the passenger tires up and cycled. One of the things that I was looking for when we cycled this thing was clearance on this oil pump oil line down here, and it does look like we have the clearance we need, so that's cool. That's awesome to find out and not be an issue. So now I'm moving forward with steering and getting steering components and stuff set up. So I need to get the box bolted back in position. I have a pitman arm here. Ordered this. It's just an OEM pitman arm. We're gonna cut this and use this spline section to make our own pitman arm for the steering. So that'll be coming up, probably not this video, but the next. And these are the steering swingers. I've already cut them out on my plasma table, prepped them all. I have a first pass on all of them already, and I've actually sanded them, and now they're ready for a cover pass. So I'll probably set the GoPro back up, get going on this first thing after I'm done with this little talking part of the video. But that is a set of my swingers that I cut up and have designed here. So that's what I'm working on for the orange truck, getting those done. And I also do have some tabs already cut out. They're over in my little grinding prep area yet. So I got tabs and weld washers for mounting them on the frame. So that's going to be what I'm working on the orange 150, is welding up the steering swingers and getting them all tacked in position. I have on this F100 already got the steering swingers all welded up. That's these here. This is part of the DIY off-road chassis kit, so that's why these swingers are going to look different. Those are mine, what I designed and put on with my beam kits. And this is what was designed to go with this chassis that we have, the 8-frame I-beam assembly chassis. So I've gotten these all welded up. Cover passes are all done. Last thing I need to do, these did have, they were 9/16 holes. I had to drill all those out to 5/8 for the heims and misalignments we have. And now I just need to go in and kind of sand up the inside after weld and clean that all up. So that's a nice bore. But those are ready. I need to get, these are the Delrin bushings that go in there. Those will get pressed in there. And then I'm going to sleeve them with a metal sleeve that will downsize our bolt to a 5/8 bolt. And yeah, that's what I need to do with that stuff. So I'll get those set up. And over here, I had all of this inner fender and core support stuff mocked up, so that way I could put this fiberglass fender on. And in doing so, found out the current beams that are set up on this thing, it's just a piece of tube and some weld-in bungs with heims, so they're just tacked together, they're not fully welded. But the overall track width is 3 inches too wide for the fiberglass that we have for this truck. So I need to take about 1.5 inches out of each of these tubes on the beams. So I'm going to tear this stuff all off, get it all back out of my way. We'll cut those beams down 1.5 inches, suck in the track width, and put them all back on there. So then we can put all this stuff back on, throw the fender on there, and cycle the tire and make sure that clears. But I'm also, while I have all this stuff off, I'm going to work on this frame, sanding it up. There's a little bit of surface rust and some like MIG splatter from welding on it. We're going to get the orbital out, and I'll clean all that up. And then also, these are the steering swinger tabs. Clean all this area up, and we'll bolt in the swingers with the proper bushings and bolts. And that way, when I start cycling the beams on that, after doing all that, I can go ahead and make drag links. If the tire clears on the fender and all that stuff, we'll be able to start making drag links and hooking steering up before I strip it all back down again. Because then we'll be making plates for the beams, and these knuckles still need welded up. So we'll be welding those on the bench. As far as the cab, I got a little line drawn on here. To be able to cycle the suspension and be able to turn the tire, I've got to trim this fiberglass cab a little bit. This thing came with like some extra material. It looks like on almost every, you know, the doorway's got extra, so the bottom's got extra, this has extra. It's all trimmed to fit to what you need. All this up in here, it's got extra lip. So we'll trim that out a little bit. I should be able to steer that tire. And that's kind of just a little bit of an overview of kind of all the stuff that you're gonna now see me doing really fast on whatever, I don't know if it's like 30 times speed that I always record at. So let's get to it. Gotten the swingers all welded up, got the cover passes done, got some tabs made up with some weld washers on those, and got them tacked up, at least on the driver's side. There is the first look of that. I started working on passenger side. There's the passenger swinger there. Gonna have a little bit more work to do over here to get that swinger in. Some trucks, the frame rails, you'll get some nice flat parallel rails to each other, parallel side to side. This truck, this F150 here, it's like 90s F150. The frame rail right about here has a big kick that wings out for then this front core support. And it is right in the way. I want to put the swinger about in the center of this frame rail. Is where we need that thing to swing and pivot. So I've had to do this on a couple builds on the Chevy, it's like a 2003 Chevy. I had to do this, cut and pocket for the swinger to be able to go into the frame. And we're gonna have to do it on this one too. So I got some lines drawn up here. I'll end up cutting a pocket out here. We'll make a triangle cut in the bottom of the frame rail down the center. That'll all pop out, and then I will burn in a new piece that's pocketed with a tab that comes out with a bolt hole. And the bolt hole on this side will actually be accessible from the inside of the frame here. Somebody has already boxed this frame rail up to about here, so I'm gonna, that recessed pocket that I'm gonna make will slide in there, and I'll be able to weld to the seam right there, and then our nut will go on the bolt right about in there. So that is what we're gonna have to do to get the passenger swinger mounted up on this side. Working on the beams and steering on this F100 build. Got some stuff mocked up. Got some of the parts kind of all bolted in here. Got the Delrin bushings installed in the swingers and in this swinger drag link, plus the metal sleeves that go in them for the bolts. Got all that stuff sized and in. So steering's looking good. I'm at a point I could make the tie rods, so I'm getting close. I'm going to kind of finalize the beams first before I do that. Make sure my measurements come out right. So what I did now is I had mocked up the front end, had the fenders on there, took all that stuff off because when I found out when I did that, the track width was a little bit wide for the fenders. So I ended up taking all this apart. I cut 1.5 inches out of the tubes, retacked in some bungs, and now we have an 88-inch wide track width from the outside of the tire to the outside of the tire, and that's going to clearance our fiberglass fenders that we have for this. There. So now that I did that, I also went ahead and set up frame ride height. So now the frame, I had to lift it up a little bit, is sitting at where this thing is going to be at for ride height. And I did that because I wanted to see where camber was at on where these things are tacked up right now, how I got them, how I got this build. So in doing that, this tire has got about a positive degree of camber, and this tire looks like it has a negative degree of camber. So we're going more for this, a negative degree of camber. So I need to cut off the tack welds on this and move this one in a little bit to adjust the camber. But also, looking around, I did notice these uniball cups are in backwards. So I'm going to need to cut the tack weld on this. The other thing is this is a flat piece with like a plate design. I'm changing up the design a little bit on these beams, so I'm going to end up taking that tube out and using a full notched. I'm going to replace this tube with a full notch tube that will come and be welded all the way to here, and then I'll end up making another gusset tube that goes in here. But so I got to take the spindle back off. I'll break the tacks on that, and then I'm also going to spin this tube 180 degrees because on this side, one of these uniball cups has a machined lip. So this is the machined lip side. And I don't know if you'll be able to see, but on this side, there is a C-clip groove, and the uniball gets pressed in from this side of the cup. That C-clip groove needs to be on the front side. The force in that uniball is all going to be coming from the front of the tire. The front of this tire is going to be hitting whoops and rocks and whatever, sending force into the spindle that way. With the C-clip, the machined lip is going to be the stronger, surface. I don't know what the right word I'm trying to think of there is, but you want that machined lip to be on the back side. It's going to be able to take up a lot more force versus the C-clip. There's potential that C-clip, fails, cracks over time and breaks, and that uniball could be pushing backwards, outward of the cup. So I'll spin those around. Those are like that on both sides. So break the tacks, change out the tubes, spin those things around, and then put the tire and everything all back on there and tack weld the upper tube on there. And that's going to be how I will set up the camber on these. So like I said, this one's pretty much what we want. This one needs adjusted in a little bit. And then after I do that, I'll be able to tear all the stuff apart. I've already drawn in CAD in my computer. I've got some overlay plates to weld. Then once I get the tube stuff done and those uniball cups flipped around, I'll be able to start working on the plate work and cutting all the stuff out on the plasma table. So kind of where I'm at on this one, a little bit of up to date, and then kind of what we're going to be working on next. So still more beam stuff. Once I'm able to get the beams welded up, that's a lot of welding, so that'll take me several days. But once I get that done, I will then be able to do the radius arm tabs. And that's what I'm really trying to get, is be able to bolt the radius arms and the beams together, and then actually be able to cycle this thing with the radius arms and beams bolted together for the first time. So I did a little clearancing on the cab. I need to do a little bit more here. I got a line. But I really want to get the beams and radius arms done first, because now that I got ride height on that, I've got the wheel positioning right for the beams to cycle right. That's what's going to help me position this cab. This cab is still kind of, I would say, in a plus or minus 1 inch zone of where its final place needs to be. So for me to really nail down where the cab is going to be, I need to finish out the beams and get the tires set. And then once I do that, then I can start building the cage and all that fun stuff. So that's where we're at. I'm going to stop talking about it. I think I covered all the things I want to cover. We'll set the GoPro back up and get back to work. check it out. I got some steering on this F-150. Got the tie rods and a drag link between the swingers made up there. That's some 1.25 inch 250 wall that's just been tapped on the ends. There's my left-hand side, put a little groove in them. But didn't use any weld bungs on these, so those are just solid steel, just tapped in the ends for the Heims. Got those all laid out. I got the swingers all tacked up now. Everything is cycling and clearing, looking good. On this side, for the swinger, for the right clearance, had to make this a little pocketed bracket here. So got that tacked in. I'll go ahead and weld this stuff up complete when I pull this stuff all out one more time. Still got a little bit more to go before I pull all this stuff out to weld up. You know, like the beam pivots there. There's a gusset that goes on there. That'll all get welded up. But it is all cycling. Next video on this thing, we'll get started on the pitman arm. There's an OEM pitman arm there. We'll use the slugs from that, and we'll make a new pitman arm, and we'll have one more drag link here to make that goes into this pocket here that will come from the steering box right there. And then we will have steering that is hooked up all the way to the wheel in the cab. So pretty exciting on that. Getting very close to finishing off the steering on this. One of the other things in the next video we'll start probably working on, that's got to get done before I pull all this stuff back out as well, will be shock tabs. So the beams, I got some tabs cut out and pre-welded, some weld washes on them. I got those all ready to go onto the front of the beams there. And speaking of shocks, this here is the shock package for the F-150. You got some Fox 2.5 coilovers, and then some Fox 3.0 3-tube bypasses front and rear. So that is where I'm at with the F-150 now. Finally just getting, you know, being able to cycle all that stuff. Still a lot of work to go, a lot of fabrication to go. We'll start getting those shocks in there next in the next video, and yeah, keep on going with that one. As far as this F100 here, I did go ahead and I didn't get any filming, but I did get the beams all welded up. You did see me taking the beams off of that thing, and then I cut them the 1.5 inch out of the tubes, got them back in there and was able to cycle stuff, and then made up some plates on CAD, cut them out on the plasma table there, and those are all welded up now. So this one still has the heat sink slug in it, but the uniball cups on the end there got nice wraps all the way around. So I need to take that out yet. I like to come in after I weld these 1.25 inch bungs. I'll run a tap in those. But these are getting ready to then be reinstalled on the F100 here. So I'll get those thrown back on here now that they're fully welded, because the next thing in that is going to be figuring out radius arm tabs. Get the radius arms tabbed to those, and then we'll be being able to build tie rods for the steering on that as well. Also waiting on, I ordered a gearbox already and a ram assist for the hydraulic ram assist, so we're waiting on that stuff. And I'll be able to kind of have steering, hopefully very soon, wrapped up on both of these trucks. So thanks for watching my channel again. A whole bunch of steering content, I-beam stuff. Maybe in the next video, I'm hoping to have both of these things kind of wrapped up in the front end, and we'll be moving on to some other stuff. Like I said, shocks. Anyways, thanks for watching. Peace. Catch you next time.